The alien palace glimmered under the light of three suns, its spires twisting toward the sky like silver icicles. Every surface was polished, every corridor alive with softly glowing patterns that shifted like liquid metal. From a distance, it looked like a monument to perfection, a kingdom where no flaw could exist. To the alien Princess Valera, it was the world she ruled and the proof of her own superiority. She moved with the grace of someone who had never known failure, her long, elegant fingers brushing along the walls as if she were feeling their secrets. Humans, she thought, could never survive here. They were weak, fragile, incapable of navigating even the simplest challenges without constant guidance. Valera's disdain for humans was known across the palace. When ambassadors came from distant worlds, she would remark openly on their frailty, their lack of endurance, their inability to think beyond instinct. Her words were sharp like knives, and she wielded them with pride. The humans who accompanied the ambassadors would shift uncomfortably, lowering their heads, unwilling to meet her piercing gaze. They were not soldiers, not warriors. They were small creatures meant for simple tasks. She had no reason to respect them, yet that day she found herself curious. She had heard whispers of human soldiers, men and women who had survived battles on worlds the aliens had abandoned. They were said to be unpredictable, daring, stubborn. Valera's interest was not born of respect but amusement. She wanted to see their weakness for herself. Marcus had been stationed at the palace for several weeks, a human soldier assigned to protect the human delegation. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with short-cropped hair and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. To the aliens, he appeared ordinary, another fragile human among the towering elegance of the palace halls. But Marcus carried a quiet strength that did not rely on bluster or technology. It came from discipline, intelligence, and an unshakable resolve. He was always alert, always prepared, even when the world assumed he was inferior. On that morning, Valera appeared at the training grounds, disguised as a visitor. The humans were performing combat exercises, their movements precise, their tactics honed through years of necessity. Valera leaned over the railing of the observation platform, eyes narrowing as she watched Marcus move. She laughed softly at first. His movements were human, clumsy perhaps compared to the fluid elegance of her own kind. He ducked under a swinging energy baton, rolled to the side, and came up again. His approach was straightforward, lacking the subtlety the aliens prized. To her, it seemed foolish, even comic. Humans were nothing more than weak creatures who relied on brute effort and luck. But as the exercises continued, she began to notice something that puzzled her. Marcus anticipated his opponent's moves, adapted instantly to changing patterns, and used the environment around him in ways the aliens rarely did. A loose platform became a shield, a fallen weapon became a tool. His movements were rough compared to alien grace, yes, but they were effective. More than that, they were clever. Valera's laughter faded. There was a spark of curiosity now, a flicker of the unexpected. She had not expected humans to be clever. They were supposed to be weak, easy to dismiss. Yet here was one who survived and thrived where others might fail. Her observation, however, was interrupted abruptly. A loud alarm echoed through the palace. Red lights pulsed along the walls, and the calm elegance of the corridors shattered in an instant. Something was wrong. Marcus's instincts kicked in immediately. He dropped the training weapon and moved toward the source of the disturbance, signaling other humans to follow. The alien guards were slow, their movements precise but rigid. They waited for instructions, for commands that might never come in time. Marcus, however, relied on no one. He ran, taking the quickest paths, scanning for threats with sharp eyes. Valera, sensing danger, moved toward the balcony overlooking the palace gardens. She had assumed she was safe, that no one could reach her without the palace guards noticing. But the attackers were swift, moving with coordinated precision that even her careful planning had not anticipated. They emerged from the shadows, their weapons strange and deadly. Valera froze for a moment, her usual confidence shaken. Marcus saw her immediately. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward the balcony, dodging blasts and leaping over obstacles. Humans were slow in appearance, but their resolve made them faster than their bodies seemed capable of. Marcus reached the edge of the balcony just as one of the attackers lunged at Valera. With a precise movement, he intercepted, pushing her out of harm's way. Valera gasped, caught off guard by the sudden human presence. He was ordinary, fragile, and yet here he was, saving her life. She had expected guards, weapons, technology, never a human. The realization struck her harder than any attack ever could. Humans were not as weak as she had believed. Marcus did not pause to explain. The attackers were still advancing. He grabbed Valera's hand, pulling her back towards safer ground, using his knowledge of the palace layout to stay one step ahead. They darted through corridors, leaped across broken walkways, and used hidden alcoves to evade pursuit. Every move Marcus made was calculated, relying on speed, instinct, and adaptability rather than sheer power. Valera struggled to keep up. Her long legs moved gracefully, but her mind was racing. She had underestimated the humans, and now she had to rely on one to survive. Every step she took beside Marcus was a lesson in humility. He was not a perfect warrior in the alien sense. He was messy, improvisational, unpredictable, but he was alive, and so was she because of him. They reached a collapsed bridge overlooking the inner courtyard. The attackers were close, their weapons glinting in the sun. There was no time to think, no time to hesitate. Marcus looked at her and nodded, signaling her to jump. Without question, Valera followed. They landed hard but safely on the other side. The sound of pursuit echoed behind them, but they had gained a momentary advantage. Valera's mind was a whirlwind. She had laughed at humans, dismissed them as weak, fragile creatures, yet here she was, alive because of one. Her heart, though still racing from fear, began to recognize a truth she had refused to see. Humans were resilient. They adapted. They survived. And they could think, plan, and act in ways that the most disciplined alien soldiers could not. Marcus did not speak much. Words were unnecessary. His focus was on survival, on keeping them both alive until the attackers were neutralized. He moved with efficiency, using everything at his disposal, the architecture, the shadows, the terrain, to their advantage. Valera could not help but watch, fascinated, as this ordinary human defied expectation after expectation. As they reached a safer chamber within the palace, Valera finally had a moment to speak. "You survive," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus gave a small, wry smile. "Humans survive," he replied simply. There was no arrogance in his tone, only quiet confidence, the kind that comes from knowing that survival is earned, not given. Valera looked at him, her eyes searching for answers. She had always believed strength came from elegance, from technology, from rigid control. She had never considered that it could come from courage, intelligence, and determination. Humans were not elegant, they were not flawless, but they were alive, and more importantly, they were capable of astonishing things when pressed. The alarm continued to sound, a reminder that danger was not yet gone. Marcus and Valera moved cautiously, aware that more attackers could appear at any moment. Yet for the first time, Valera did not feel helpless. She felt a spark of respect, a recognition that humans were far more than she had ever imagined. As they rounded a corner, Marcus signaled her to stay low. The attackers had split, some moving in predictable patterns, others searching blindly. Marcus used the chaos to their advantage, slipping through narrow passages, using human ingenuity to avoid confrontation when possible. Valera followed closely, matching his pace, learning without realizing it. She saw how he thought, how he adapted, how he made split-second decisions that turned potential disaster into opportunity. Every moment beside him was a lesson, every action a demonstration of what humans could do when survival demanded it. Finally, they reached a secure chamber, one that Marcus had identified in advance as a temporary refuge. They collapsed inside, catching their breath, hearts still racing. The immediate danger had passed, but the impact of the encounter lingered. Valera sat in silence, her mind a storm of questions and realizations. "You're different," she said finally, turning to Marcus. I thought humans were weak, fragile, incapable. Humans survive because we keep going, no matter what." Valera had seen a human soldier stand between her and death. She had witnessed courage, ingenuity, and determination in their purest forms, and she knew deep down that the humans she had dismissed as weak were anything but. For Marcus, it was just another day. Protecting lives, making split-second decisions, surviving against impossible odds, this was what humans did. But for Valera, it was the beginning of a revelation, a realization that would challenge everything she had believed about strength, power, and the creatures she had once considered fragile. The suns began to set, casting long shadows across the palace corridors. Valera and Marcus remained in the chamber, catching their breath, each lost in thought. One had gained respect, the other had gained understanding. And in that quiet moment, the first spark of change ignited, one that would reshape the way an entire empire viewed humanity. The human soldier had survived, the princess had learned, and the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The chaos outside the palace seemed endless. Explosions echoed through the corridors, and distant alarms sounded like the wails of the city itself. Smoke curled through broken windows, and shards of glass littered the ground. Valera, the alien princess, clutched her cloak tightly around her slender frame, her heart still racing from the sudden attack. Every instinct told her to panic, to retreat to the safety of her guards, but there were no guards left. Only Marcus, the human soldier who had defied every expectation she had ever held about her species, stood beside her. Marcus surveyed the chamber quickly, eyes moving in constant motion, calculating the next steps. He did not relax even for a moment. His training demanded vigilance, and his experience had taught him that danger rarely came alone. "We need to move," he said, his voice calm but firm. "They won't stop until they reach us. Follow me, stay close, and don't hesitate." Marcus opened a narrow side door leading to a series of maintenance tunnels, spaces too small for the bulk of alien guards or their advanced machinery. Marcus moved like a shadow, guiding Valera with silent signals, making sure she understood each step without words. The tunnels twisted and turned in ways that would confuse even the most advanced alien mapping systems. Marcus knew them from a prior reconnaissance mission and used every turn to their advantage. As they moved, Valera's mind raced. She had mocked humans all her life, believing them weak, fragile, incapable of real heroism. Yet here she was, alive because one had acted decisively, with courage and intelligence. Every instinct she had relied on to feel superior now wavered. They came to a junction where the tunnel split in 3 directions. Marcus crouched low and examined the patterns of movement above, listening to the faint echoes of pursuit. He pointed to the middle passage. "This way. It's longer, but it's less visible. We can use it to reach the lower courtyard, and then escape the palace through the gardens." As they moved, a sound caught their attention, a low, mechanical hum different from the chaos above. Marcus paused, signaling Valera to stay behind him. From the shadows emerged a drone, sleek and deadly, with sensors glowing red and weapons mounted along its sides. It was too fast for the palace guards to intercept and clearly designed to eliminate intruders. Marcus did not flinch. He quickly scanned the tunnel for objects he could use, picking up a loose metal pipe from the ground. As the drone advanced, he rolled to the side, striking its sensor array with perfect timing. Sparks flew as it wobbled, but it did not fall. The drone recalibrated and launched a small energy bolt toward Marcus, who dove behind a tunnel support, narrowly avoiding the blast. Valera's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen a human react so quickly under pressure, combining speed, intelligence, and improvisation. Marcus was not invincible. He was human, yet he moved with a decisiveness that made him seem unstoppable. Without a word, he used the debris around him, creating obstacles and distractions. When the drone lunged again, he struck its wing, causing it to crash against the wall and fall silent. Valera's eyes widened. How did you do that?" she asked, awe in her voice. Marcus gave a brief shrug, wiping dust from his hands. "We adapt," he said simply. "We survive by using what's around us. Humans are not strong like you think, but we're clever when it matters." They continued through the tunnels, emerging into a ruined courtyard bathed in the light of the setting suns. Smoke and dust hung in the air, creating a hazy orange glow. The attackers had begun retreating from this area, giving them a temporary advantage. Marcus paused to observe the environment. He pointed out structural weaknesses in the walls and staircases, potential traps and escape routes. Valera watched him, absorbing every detail. "We need to reach the East Gardens," Marcus said. "From there, we can climb the outer walls and make it to the river. The attackers won't expect us to take that path." It was not brute force that made humans dangerous. It was their ability to think under pressure, to improvise, and to act with courage when lives were on the line. She realized that she had judged an entire species by appearances, and it had almost cost her life. As they moved through the courtyard, the attackers reappeared, more organized this time. Alien mercenaries in sleek armor advanced, their weapons humming with energy. Marcus assessed the situation quickly. "We can't fight them head-on. Stay low, follow me, and trust me." He grabbed a loose cable and swung it, tripping the enemy and sending him sprawling. Another attacker advanced, and Marcus used a fallen stone slab to knock the weapon from his hands. Valera followed, beginning to understand his methods, learning to anticipate threats as he did. They reached the base of the eastern wall, a sheer drop to the river below. Marcus pointed to a narrow ledge that ran along the side of the building. "We can climb down here," he said. It's risky, but safer than facing them directly. Marcus moved first, demonstrating the technique, and Valera followed, gripping the stone ledges with care. Every inch was dangerous, yet every movement was precise. Halfway down, Valera lost her footing briefly, and Marcus's hand shot out, gripping hers with firm strength. "Careful," he said calmly. "We're almost there." They reached the riverbank safely, the water reflecting the fiery light of the setting suns. The attackers did not follow. They were unprepared for such unconventional tactics, and Marcus had anticipated that. Valera took a moment to breathe, her mind racing with thoughts she could not yet articulate. Humans were not weak. They were resilient, resourceful, and capable of astonishing courage. Marcus knelt beside her, examining the river for safe crossing points. "We can follow the current downstream," he said. "It's slower, but it will keep us hidden until we reach a friendly zone." She had seen one human soldier act with bravery, intelligence, and compassion, and it had been enough to shift her understanding of an entire species. As they moved along the river, the sounds of the city faded, replaced by the gentle rush of water and the occasional call of a distant bird. Valera allowed herself to relax slightly, though she remained alert. Marcus remained watchful, scanning the riverbanks and surrounding terrain for any threats. His movements were effortless, natural, yet precise, a combination of training, instinct, and human adaptability. Valera observed him quietly, a sense of admiration growing within her. She had mocked humans for their weakness, for their dependence on others, for their lack of elegance. Now she saw the truth. Humans survived because they adapted, because they acted decisively, and because they refused to give up even when the odds seemed impossible. Marcus embodied everything her society had underestimated. The journey along the river was slow and careful. They navigated fallen branches, slippery rocks, and shallow rapids, each step requiring attention and cooperation. Valera followed Marcus's lead, learning quickly, her confidence growing with every successful maneuver. By the time they reached a secluded clearing, the first stars had begun to appear in the sky. Marcus finally allowed himself a brief pause, sitting on a smooth rock beside the river. Valera mirrored him, her mind still racing. "You humans," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I never understood. I thought strength was about power, about perfection. But you survive, you think, you act, you adapt. You," she trailed off, searching for the words to describe the revelation she had just experienced. Marcus looked at her calmly. "Humans survive because we have to," he said simply. "We may not be perfect, but we don't give up. We protect each other, we think quickly, and we keep going no matter what." The clearing was quiet now, the sounds of the city and the palace far behind them. Valera looked up at the stars, considering the vastness of the galaxy and the smallness of her previous assumptions. Humans were underestimated at every turn, yet here she was, alive because one had acted decisively, courageously, and wisely. Marcus watched her silently, sensing the shift in her perspective. He did not need praise. He had done what he had been trained to do, but he understood the significance of what had just occurred. A princess who had believed humans were weak had now begun to see them in a new light. That recognition could change everything. As the night settled over the riverbank, Valera finally spoke again, her voice steady and thoughtful. "I underestimated your kind," she admitted. "I believed humans were weak, fragile, incapable of real strength, but I see now I was wrong." She would not forget this lesson. Humans were not what she had believed, and she knew that the story of this human soldier, his courage, his ingenuity, and his unwavering resolve was only the beginning. The river flowed steadily beneath them, carrying them away from the palace and the chaos that had threatened their lives. But in that quiet moment, with the stars above and the sounds of the night surrounding them, Valera understood something profound. Humans were not weak. Humans survived. And some humans, like Marcus, were capable of greatness that could change the course of worlds. The journey was far from over. Danger still lurked, and challenges awaited them in the wider galaxy. But for the first time, Valera saw the truth clearly. Survival was not about appearances. Strength was not about perfection. And humanity was something far greater than she had ever imagined. The night deepened around the river, cloaking Marcus and Valera in darkness. Stars reflected on the rippling water, but the light was faint, barely enough to see the edges of rocks and fallen branches. Every step required care. Marcus moved with quiet precision, scanning the shadows ahead, his senses alert to every sound and motion. Valera followed closely, learning to trust his instincts completely. The chaos at the palace had not been random. Marcus had quickly realized that the attack was part of a larger plan, one designed to destabilize the alien leadership. It was not just a mercenary raid. It was an attempt to send a message that no one was safe, not even royalty. The attackers had underestimated him, just as Valera had underestimated humans. That underestimation had saved them both once, but Marcus knew it might not happen again. They reached a small clearing where the river split into two narrow streams. Marcus paused, examining the terrain. "We can follow the left stream," he said. "It's narrower and more hidden, but it leads toward a nearby settlement friendly to humans. We'll have some support there." She had begun to internalize his methods, observing how he made decisions based on limited information and constantly changing circumstances. Humans, she realized, were not predictable like the aliens. Their unpredictability was their strength. Where her soldiers would wait for orders or rely on advanced technology, Marcus adapted to the situation in real time. As they moved along the stream, the soft sounds of rushing water were interrupted by a sudden snapping of a branch. Marcus froze, dropping low to the ground. Valera followed suit. Through the dim light, shadows moved along the tree line. Another group of attackers, silent and swift, had followed them. Marcus counted them quickly, 4, armed with energy rifles and strange cloaking devices that made them nearly invisible in the dark. He did not panic. Humans were rarely the strongest, but they had an advantage in ingenuity. Marcus scanned the clearing and noticed a series of fallen logs and uneven rocks along the riverbank. He gestured to Valera, signaling her to spread out slightly and stay behind cover. Using the terrain, he began to set a trap. Valera watched, fascinated. Marcus rolled a log toward a narrow choke point, balancing it precariously, then picked up stones and positioned them for distractions. His movements were swift and precise, combining instinct with intelligence. The attackers advanced, unaware of the trap waiting for them. The first one stepped onto the log. It wobbled, tipping him forward. He tried to recover, but Marcus used a nearby branch to strike, sending him sprawling into the shallow water. Another attacker advanced, only to be tripped by a hidden vine that Marcus had pulled across the path. The remaining two hesitated, sensing danger but unable to see its source. Valera realized what was happening. Humans could use the environment itself as a weapon. Technology and brute strength were not always necessary when one understood how to turn obstacles into tools. She began to feel a mix of awe and humility. The creature she had once considered fragile was not just surviving, he was controlling the battlefield with strategy and ingenuity. Marcus noticed her gaze. "Watch," he said quietly. "Strength isn't always about what you carry, it's about what you can use when it matters." The water was waist-deep, slowing their movement and limiting their maneuverability. Marcus picked up a loose metal pipe and swung it with precision, disabling the weapons of one attacker. The other attempted to retreat, but Marcus anticipated the move, cutting him off with a fallen log that blocked the path. Valera could not help but speak. "Humans think differently. They adapt." Marcus sidestepped, grabbed the creature's arm and twisted it, forcing him to drop his weapon into the stream. Water splashed around them, and the attacker stumbled backward, defeated. Marcus released him, letting him sink into the shallows while he turned to check on Valera. She was breathing heavily, a mixture of fear and exhilaration in her eyes. I don't understand how you do it," she admitted. "You're not invincible, you're human, yet." Her voice trailed off as she searched for the right word. "Yet humans survive," Marcus finished for her, his tone calm but firm. "It's what we do best." Every prejudice she had carried about humans, their weakness, their fragility, their dependence on others was being dismantled piece by piece. She realized that humans were underestimated not because they lacked ability, but because their strengths were different from her own species. Humans had courage, resilience, adaptability, and an instinct to protect one another. In short, they had heart. As they continued along the river, the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon. The attackers were gone, and the immediate danger had passed, but Marcus remained vigilant. He led Valera through dense foliage, keeping to hidden paths and using natural cover to avoid detection. She followed, learning silently from his movements, gradually understanding the logic behind every choice he made. After several hours, they reached the edge of a small human settlement, a cluster of simple buildings surrounded by defensive walls and watchtowers. Marcus signaled the guards, who quickly opened the gates to allow them in. The humans within the settlement reacted with surprise and relief, seeing one of their own returning with the alien princess. Valera felt a strange mixture of emotions. She had been rescued by a human, survived alongside him, and now found herself in a human settlement that was simple but practical, functional, and welcoming. The stark contrast to her palace, with its elegance and perfection, was undeniable. Yet here she sensed strength, purpose, and life in every detail. Humans did not need grandeur to survive, they thrived because of adaptability, intelligence, and cooperation. Marcus led her to a safe room within the settlement, where she could rest and recover. He remained alert, checking the perimeter and communicating quietly with the settlement guards. Valera watched him, her admiration growing. She had seen humans fight, survive, and protect one another in ways that her own species had never taught her. She had underestimated them for centuries, and now she understood the mistake. Sitting beside her, Marcus finally allowed himself a moment to relax. "We're safe here for now," he said. "But this is far from over. The attackers are organized and they'll come back. We need to be ready." "Strength isn't always obvious," he said. "Humans survive because we adapt, because we protect each other, and because we refuse to give up. You've seen that now." She had seen courage, intelligence, and ingenuity in action, qualities that her alien society often dismissed. For the first time, she recognized that humans were capable of greatness that could rival even the most advanced civilizations. The settlement's leader, an older human named Commander Reynolds, approached them. He had heard of the attack at the palace and Marcus's actions. Valera observed the respect in the humans' eyes as they spoke to him. Here, humans were not fragile or weak. They were resourceful, disciplined, and courageous. Marcus had earned their admiration not through arrogance but through his actions. Commander Reynolds looked at Valera, then at Marcus. "You've both been through a lot," he said. "We'll provide supplies, medical care, and reinforcements if needed, but you must rest. Tomorrow we plan our next move." She realized that the galaxy might judge humans as weak, but she now knew the truth. Humans survived because they refused to accept limits, because they adapted, and because they acted with courage when it mattered most. As night fell again over the settlement, Valera watched the stars, her thoughts reflecting on the lessons of the day. She had been saved, guided, and inspired by a human soldier. Marcus had demonstrated qualities that her alien society rarely valued: ingenuity, determination, courage, and empathy. She understood that strength was not about appearance, technology, or rigid discipline. It was about heart and mind, resilience, and adaptability. Marcus, seated nearby, prepared quietly for the challenges that lay ahead. He knew the attackers would return, that the danger was far from over. But he also knew that humans had a unique advantage: their ability to think, adapt, and survive against overwhelming odds. He looked at Valera and saw not just an alien princess, but someone capable of understanding humanity's true strength, and perhaps even sharing it with the galaxy. In the quiet moments before sleep, Valera felt a transformation within herself. She had believed humans were weak. She had been proven wrong, and in that realization she found hope, respect, and a new sense of purpose. She would no longer see humans as fragile creatures. She would see them as what they truly were: resilient, courageous, and capable of extraordinary acts. The river continued to flow outside the settlement, carrying the promise of a new day. For Marcus and Valera, it marked the beginning of a journey not just of survival, but of understanding, alliance, and the reshaping of long-held assumptions. Humans had survived the night, outsmarted the attackers, and demonstrated that their strength lay not in perfection, but in heart, mind, and unyielding courage. And the galaxy, Valera realized, would soon have to see it too. The sun rose slowly over the human settlement, casting golden light over the river and the surrounding forest. Birds sang, and the soft rustle of leaves filled the air, a stark contrast to the chaos that had consumed the palace just a day before. Yet the calm was deceptive. Marcus knew the attackers were still out there, watching, waiting for another opportunity to strike. They underestimated humans once, but humans had survived, and they would not underestimate them again. Valera awoke early, her mind still replaying the events of the past day. She had survived because of Marcus, a human soldier who had defied every expectation she had ever held about her species. Her pride had been shattered, replaced by a deep respect that she could not ignore. She watched Marcus as he prepared their gear, checking weapons, supplies, and the river maps they would need to navigate the surrounding terrain. "You're ready for anything," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Humans adapt so quickly, they see what others miss. We don't always have the luxury of strength or technology. Sometimes we have only our minds and our instincts." The settlement's leader, Commander Reynolds, approached them, his expression grave. "We've received reports," he said. "The attackers are regrouping. They have reinforcements, and they're moving toward this area. We'll need to prepare defenses and plan an ambush if we want to survive. They expect a direct approach. We'll give them something they won't anticipate. We'll use speed, misdirection, and terrain to level the playing field." This was human ingenuity in action, a stark contrast to the rigid strategies of the alien forces. The humans in the settlement worked quickly under Marcus's guidance. They moved silently, setting traps, preparing barricades, and arranging escape routes. Valera assisted, learning the methods he employed. Each task revealed another layer of human resilience and adaptability. They worked together seamlessly, humans and Valera united by a common goal, survival against overwhelming odds. As night fell, the attackers approached. Their movements were careful, coordinated, and confident. They believed the humans would be easy prey, that the settlement could be taken with minimal effort. But Marcus had anticipated their approach. He had positioned his team in hidden locations, set traps along predictable paths, and created false trails to mislead them. Valera followed him silently, moving with caution. She had learned much in the past day, but she still felt the weight of responsibility. She had once dismissed humans as weak, but now she understood their true strength. It was not in their appearance or their technology. It was in their courage, their intelligence, and their determination to survive. The first skirmish began at the edge of the forest. One of the attackers triggered a tripwire, releasing a cascade of rocks that rolled downhill, forcing them to halt and regroup. Another fell into a camouflaged pit, hidden beneath leaves and branches. Marcus moved swiftly, directing the humans and reacting to the attackers' movements with precision. Valera observed in awe. Humans were not predictable. They could improvise, use the environment as a weapon, and coordinate without rigid commands. Marcus was at the center of it all, a leader not because of rank, but because of skill, courage, and quick thinking. He turned every obstacle into an advantage, every disadvantage into an opportunity. The attackers realized they were being outmaneuvered and increased their aggression. Energy blasts streaked through the forest, and the humans responded with calculated countermeasures. Valera joined in, using strategies Marcus had taught her. She worked alongside the humans, her alien training supplemented by the lessons she had learned from Marcus's ingenuity. One attacker broke through a defensive line and charged toward Valera. Marcus reacted instantly. He intercepted the enemy, using a fallen branch to disarm him and a calculated shove to push him into a trap already set along the path. Valera saw firsthand how human ingenuity could neutralize threats without relying on overwhelming power. The battle raged through the night, a combination of strategy, improvisation, and sheer determination. Marcus led with calm authority, never showing fear or hesitation. The humans around him responded in kind, inspired by his courage and quick thinking. Valera could not help but be impressed. She had underestimated humans for her entire life, yet now she witnessed them overcome challenges that even her elite soldiers might have failed against. As dawn approached, the attackers were forced to retreat. Their numbers had been reduced, their confidence shaken. Marcus and the humans had survived, using intelligence, adaptability, and courage to turn the tide. Valera watched the last of the attackers disappear into the forest, a newfound respect and understanding etched into her expression. "You've done it," she said quietly to Marcus. "You've shown me humans are not weak. You've shown me what true strength looks like. Humans survive because we act, because we adapt, because we never give up." They were not weak. They were extraordinary in ways her species had never valued. The human settlement celebrated their victory quietly, tending to the wounded and reinforcing defenses. Marcus continued to organize the humans, ensuring they were prepared for any further attacks. Valera assisted where she could, her respect for the humans growing with every action. She had been wrong, dangerously wrong, to dismiss them. Now she understood the power of human resilience, ingenuity, and courage. As the sun rose higher, casting light over the forest and river, Valera reflected on the journey. She had been saved by a human soldier, protected by him, and inspired by his courage and intelligence. She realized that the galaxy might underestimate humans, but those who faced them directly would see their true strength. Marcus watched the sunrise as well, aware that the attackers might regroup or seek revenge. But he also knew that humans had an advantage that could never be fully measured: their adaptability, ingenuity, and determination. They had survived the night, overcome impossible odds, and proven their strength not through raw power, but through heart, mind, and courage. Valera approached him, her eyes filled with newfound understanding. "I see it now," she said. "Humans are not weak. They survive, adapt, and overcome. And some humans, like you, are capable of things even the most advanced civilizations cannot predict." She had witnessed it firsthand, and she knew it was true. Humans were underestimated across the galaxy, but their strength lay not in appearances or technology. It lay in courage, intelligence, and resilience. The day passed quietly after the battle, but both Marcus and Valera remained alert. The attackers were still out there, and the galaxy was full of dangers. Yet they had proven something important. Humans were not to be dismissed or underestimated. As evening fell, Valera and Marcus walked along the river, reflecting on the lessons of the past days. The water flowed steadily, carrying them forward, just as their journey was moving into new challenges. Valera had been taught humility and respect, understanding that strength came in many forms. She had learned that humans, despite appearances, could overcome seemingly impossible odds through courage, ingenuity, and determination. Marcus looked at her, sensing her transformation. "The galaxy will challenge us again," he said. "But humans will survive, that's what we do." She had underestimated humans her entire life, but she had been proven wrong. And in that realization, she found hope, respect, and a new understanding of what it meant to be strong. The stars began to appear in the sky as night returned. Valera watched them silently, contemplating the vastness of the galaxy and the journey ahead. She knew that humans had a unique power, one that was not always visible but always present. They survived because they adapted, because they protected one another, and because they never gave up. Marcus remained beside her, ever vigilant, ready for the challenges that lay ahead. Together they had faced danger, outsmarted their enemies, and proven that humans were more than capable of standing against overwhelming odds. Valera had seen it firsthand, and she knew that her understanding of strength, courage, and humanity had been forever changed. The river flowed beneath them, carrying the promise of a new day. For Marcus and Valera, the journey was far from over, but they had proven something crucial. Humans survived, and their strength lay not in what they had, but in who they were. And the galaxy, she realized, would have to see that truth soon. The early morning mist hung low over the forest, the river flowing silently beneath the rising sun. Marcus and Valera stood at the edge of the human settlement, watching the horizon. Today, the attackers would return, and Marcus knew it. He had anticipated every possible approach, every route they might take. But this time, it would not be about survival alone. This was the moment to prove something far greater, that humans could face overwhelming odds and succeed not because of superior technology, but because of courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Valera adjusted her cloak, feeling the weight of the day ahead. She had learned much in the past days, seeing firsthand the strength of humans in action. Her respect for them had grown into admiration, and she knew that the coming battle would test not only Marcus and the settlement but her own beliefs as well. For the first time in her life, she faced the truth. Humans were not weak. They were strong in ways her alien society had never valued. Marcus turned to her, his expression calm but resolute. "We need to hold them here," he said. "We have the terrain, the traps, and the people, but they will test us. You'll see the difference between brute strength and strategy." The human defenders moved into position, guided by Marcus's careful instructions. Hidden trenches, concealed pits, and clever diversions were all set to counter the attackers' numbers and advanced weapons. Valera assisted where she could, placing simple but effective traps and signaling positions where the attackers might try to advance. Every preparation emphasized ingenuity over sheer force, a lesson she had learned from Marcus. As the sun climbed higher, the first signs of the enemy appeared. From the distant tree line, figures emerged, moving with a mixture of caution and confidence. They believed they were superior, that humans were predictable and fragile, but Marcus had anticipated their arrogance. He signaled to the defenders, who held their positions with quiet determination, ready to act at the right moment. The first wave of attackers advanced quickly, weapons raised and energy rifles ready to fire. Marcus observed them, calculating their speed, formations, and likely approach routes. Then, with a subtle gesture, he initiated the trap. Rocks rolled down natural slopes, causing the attackers to stumble and disrupt their formation. Hidden pits captured several of them, and simple yet effective snares immobilized others. Valera watched in awe. Humans did not rely on brute force or overwhelming technology. They used intelligence, observation, and adaptability. Every move Marcus made was precise, calculated, and effective. The attackers, confident at first, began to falter, unable to anticipate the unconventional tactics they faced. Marcus moved forward, coordinating his team silently. Humans acted as one, following his lead with discipline and courage. The attackers tried to regroup, firing energy blasts and advancing in small groups, but Marcus anticipated each maneuver. He used the terrain to funnel them into narrow paths, where numbers meant little and ingenuity mattered most. Valera noticed how Marcus remained calm under pressure. He did not panic, he did not rush. Every decision was deliberate, every action purposeful. He was not just protecting the settlement or herself, he was demonstrating the strength of his species. Humans survived because they adapted, because they used their minds, because they acted with courage when it mattered. The attackers sent a larger force around the right flank, hoping to catch the humans off guard. Marcus noticed immediately. He signaled to the defenders, repositioning them to counter the maneuver. Using simple but effective diversions, they lured the attackers into traps set along hidden slopes and tree lines. One by one, the attackers fell, immobilized or disarmed by clever strategies rather than brute force. Valera followed Marcus closely, observing and assisting. She realized the humans' greatest strength was not just their ability to survive, but their ability to think, adapt, and inspire those around them. The alien princess had underestimated this strength for her entire life, and she now understood how dangerous it could be to dismiss it. One of the attackers broke through a defensive line, charging directly toward Valera. Marcus reacted instantly. He intercepted the enemy, using a combination of quick strikes and the environment itself to neutralize the threat. Valera, previously helpless, began to understand the tactics and even assisted, holding off attackers and redirecting them into traps. The battle continued for hours, each moment a test of intelligence, adaptability, and courage. Humans used everything at their disposal, the terrain, their wits, and each other, to turn the tide against an enemy that expected easy victory. Valera witnessed it all, amazed by how a species she had once considered weak could overcome such overwhelming odds through determination, strategy, and teamwork. As the sun reached its highest point, the attackers began to retreat, their forces diminished and their confidence shattered. Marcus and the human defenders had survived, not through brute strength, but through clever tactics, courage, and unyielding resolve. Valera watched the last of them flee, a mixture of awe, respect, and understanding in her eyes. She turned to Marcus. I see it now," she said. "Humans are not weak. They survive, they adapt, they overcome. And some humans like you are capable of things even the strongest soldiers cannot predict. Strength is not always obvious, but it is there." Commander Reynolds approached, smiling at the outcome of the battle. "You've done something remarkable," he said. "The humans here have survived against impossible odds, and it is because of your leadership and courage, Marcus. And this," he said, nodding toward Valera, "is a lesson that even the galaxy's most advanced civilizations can learn from." She realized that the galaxy had underestimated humans for too long, and now it was time to see them differently. As the settlement celebrated their hard-won victory, Marcus remained focused, ensuring the humans were safe and prepared for any future threats. Valera assisted where she could, her respect for the humans and their abilities growing by the hour. She had been wrong, dangerously wrong, to underestimate them, and she vowed never to repeat that mistake. The day passed with quiet relief, the river flowing steadily beside them, carrying the promise of a new beginning. Valera and Marcus walked along its banks, reflecting on the events and lessons of the past days. She had seen the strength of humanity in action and understood that it was a strength not always visible but always present. Humans survived because they adapted, because they acted with courage, and because they never gave up. Marcus looked at Valera, sensing her transformation. "The galaxy will challenge us again," he said, "but humans will survive. That's what we do." Valera watched silently, contemplating the vastness of the galaxy and the journey ahead. She knew humans had a unique power, one that was not always obvious but always present. They survived because they adapted, because they protected one another, and because they never gave up. Marcus remained beside her, ever vigilant, ready for the challenges that lay ahead. Together they had faced danger, outsmarted their enemies, and proven that humans could stand against overwhelming odds. Valera had seen it firsthand, and she knew her understanding of strength, courage, and humanity had been forever changed. In the days that followed, Valara and Marcus worked to strengthen the settlement, train the humans, and prepare for any further attacks. The alien princess no longer saw humans as weak. She saw them as capable, courageous, and extraordinary. She began sharing her newfound respect with her own people, advocating for recognition of humans' true abilities. The humans themselves grew more confident, inspired by Marcus's leadership and the recognition of their strengths. They learned to rely on ingenuity, strategy, and cooperation, understanding that survival was about more than raw power. Marcus had shown them that their greatest strengths were often invisible to those who judged them by appearances alone. Valara, once proud and dismissive, had been transformed by what she had witnessed. She understood that human strength lay not in perfection, technology, or brute force, but in heart, mind, and determination. She had been saved, guided, and inspired by one human soldier, and she knew that his actions had the power to change perceptions across the galaxy. As she stood beside Marcus on the riverbank, watching the stars reflected in the water, she felt a deep sense of respect and gratitude. Humans were not weak. Humans survived, and they could achieve greatness in ways that even the most advanced civilizations might never anticipate. The river flowed steadily, carrying them forward into a galaxy full of challenges, dangers, and opportunities. Marcus and Valara knew that the journey was far from over, but they had proven something crucial. Humans were strong, resilient, and capable of extraordinary acts. The galaxy, she realized, would soon have to see the truth. Humans were no longer fragile creatures to be dismissed. They were survivors, thinkers, and warriors in their own right. And the story of Marcus, the human soldier who stood between life and death, would echo across worlds as a testament to the strength of humanity. Valara turned to Marcus, a smile of genuine admiration on her face. "I understand now," she said. "Humans are not weak, and I will make sure the galaxy knows it." "We survive," he said simply, "and we adapt. That's what humans do."